All right, so yesterday we took a look at section 4.1. Can somebody remind me what was the equation that we had yesterday? Yep. Y equals mx plus b. What was the m? Slope, and b? Y-intercept. So this equation is called slope-intercept. That's one way to write the equation of a line. Today we're going to look at a different equation. It's not called slope-intercept. In fact, it's not going to use the intercept at all. It's going to use a point and the slope. Okay? Point, slope. So in the box at the top, first thing you want to... Wait, what's up? First thing you want to write at the top is in that box, this equation. This is like y equals mx plus b, but it's the kind of equation we're using today.
Okay, unrelated question, but when is your after school?
My after school day will be tomorrow, Thursday, before the test. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is like this. So yesterday we did y equals mx plus b for everything. This is pretty much what we're going to use today. Yesterday you had to find a couple things and plug them in. Today, same idea. You got to find a couple things and plug them in. The things you have to find are what the arrows are pointing to. You have to find the m, which is still the slope. This is part of a coordinate, and this is part of a coordinate. The things that don't change in this formula ever are the y, the equals, and the x. You never have to change the y, the equals, and the x. Okay? Those three things stay the same. Okay? Only things that are going to change are y1, m, and x1. x1 and y1, that's the coordinate that I tell you the line passes through. Okay? So that's what I'll give you. Give you guys a coordinate, and I'll give you the slope. If I don't give you the slope, what did we say? How do you find slope? It's what over what?
Rise over run.
It's rise over run. You're going to have a picture. You're going to be able to count. Okay, kind of like, it's very similar to yesterday. All right. So, we're going to go through the steps of example 1 as we do the problem. Okay? So it says example 1, write an equation in point slope form. That's this. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, the point that I want you to go through is the coordinate 8, 3, and the slope is 1 over 4. Okay, you guys already got that on your guided notes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, part 1. Yes. Yes. Y. The y stays as y. You are not plugging anything in for what I just circled. So you're going to copy it down. Like when we start doing the problem. Y stays as y. The minus is also going to stay. We're not going to do anything with the minus. The y1 is going to change. What's it going to change to? Well, you're going to look at your coordinate. Bless you.
Thank you.
And it says, look at the number after the comma. Remember, when you write a coordinate, it's x comma y. The number after the comma in the coordinate they give you is going to get filled in for the y1. So plug in the number after the comma from the coordinate that is given. And the coordinate given here is 8, 3. So let's start. You guys got a little bit of room. You guys got a little bit of room, like at the bottom here, where you could write the answer, or you got a little bit of room above that line. You can put it anywhere right on the bottom. All right. So, y stays as y. Got it. What about the minus? Does that minus change? No, keep the minus. Now the y1, it says plug in the number after the comma from the coordinate given. What's the number after the comma? What's the y value? 3. You're going to fill that in for y1. What's going to come after the y1? Look at your formula. Equals. Okay. The next thing I have to write is m. What's m again? Yeah, m is my slope. So on step m, plug in the slope that's given. Someone just said what it was. What did they give me for a slope? 1/4.
Will they always tell you what the slope is?
If they don't, you're going to have to count on a graph and look at it yourself.
Mr. Hager,
Mm-hmm.
do you know if it's gonna snow again?
No, I don't know. I think it's going to be warmer later in the week. What comes right after the m? Look at the formula. Right after it.
X minus X.
Right before the x.
Parentheses?
Parenthesis. Put that. What comes after the parenthesis?
X.
X. Let's read the directions for x. X stays as x. You're not plugging anything in for that. So x stays as x. Okay, we're just going right in order. What comes after the x? Minus. What a minus. What comes after the minus?
X1.
X1. Let's read the directions for
8.
X1. Plug in the number before the comma from the coordinate given. So we already used the number after the comma. That was the y. Now we're using the number before the comma. What's our number before the comma? 8. Now, I'm not quite done. There's one more thing I have to do. What am I missing? I'm missing the other parenthesis. What you guys just wrote right here, that is called an equation in point-slope form. You don't have to find the intercept. You just use the 8, the 3, and the 1/4. You just have to put the 8, the 3, and the 1/4 in the right spots. That's it. Yep.
What's that little 1/4 next to the y? And the
X1 and Y1. That's just, it just stands for your first X and your first Y. In this case, it's the only X and the only Y. Sometimes we have 2 coordinates, sometimes we only have 1. But yeah, it just stands for your first X and your first Y. Yeah.
Can I move up?
Yeah. Okay. Any questions on that? Now, is this y equals mx plus b? What I wrote right here.
No.
No, it's not y equals mx plus b. This is point slope. Y equals mx plus b is called slope intercept. Now, they're not always going to ask you to do part 2. Part 2 is taking this equation that you did all the work for and getting it in y equals mx plus b. This is how you do part 2, if they ask you to do it. They're not going to ask you to do it on every problem. Part 2, it's changing your equation from point slope. We're just going to put an arrow to slope intercept. So it's changing from what we did today into the way we did it yesterday. It's just making it look like we did yesterday. First thing you have to do is distribute. There's 2 things you have to do. You have to distribute. And you guys already got that on your guided notes. So what you have to distribute, I'm going to just add the letter M in there. Distribute the M. Okay. What's the M in my problem?
The 1/4.
The 1/4. Is there a sign to the left of the 1/4, like a negative? No, there's no sign here, so I don't have to worry about that. You're going to go just like that. That's the first step. On the left-hand side, when you distribute the 1/4, does that do anything to the y and the 3?
No.
No. So for this step, just copy that down. 1/4 times x. Okay, the way you guys are going to write it, that's all you can do. You can't multiply a number and a letter. They don't simplify. Right? So you just stick them next to each other. 1/4 times x. What's the next thing in the parentheses after the x? A negative. And now I'm going to use my calculator, and I'm going to do 1/4 times 8. So on my calculator,
Wait, do you need to do this?
yep,
Let's see.
1/4 times 8. 2. I got 2. Any question on what I did there? I just distributed that 1/4 out. Now I have an equation that's not in either form. It's not in point slope. It's not in slope intercept. It's kind of in the middle. So we're going to finish it off by doing the last step. And you guys already have that on your notes. Add or subtract the number on the equal sign with the y to the other side. So what's the number that's with the y right now?
-3.
-3. How would you move a -3 to the other side?
By adding it.
By adding it. +3, +3. What's -3 plus 3? 0. What's on the left-hand side now? Yep. Left-hand side.
Oh, y.
Y equals. Wait a minute, that's what we did yesterday. Y equals. We just took our answer and we changed it into what we did yesterday. It's not like one answer is right and one's wrong. They're both right. It's just one of them is called point slope. The other one is slope intercept. Okay. Now, when you add the +3, can you add a number to a letter?
No.
No. So you can't do anything with this. Can you add a number to a number?
Yes.
Yeah. What's -2 plus 3?
1.
1. So that is exactly the same answer as the one up above. The top one is called point slope. The bottom one is called slope intercept. Okay? You're not always going to have to do part 2. Sometimes we're going to be able to stop at part 1 and just leave our answer just like that. Question? Yep. Maybe I'll do one more where we practice part 2, but most of the time today, I'm going to have you guys at least stop after part 1. You're not going to have to do part 2 most of the time. All right. So I think as far as notes, that's pretty much it for like explaining. We'll just try some examples and that'll be it.
Yes. What time does this class end?
2:40.
Oh, yeah.
We got 50.
Okay. Write an equation in point slope form. Can somebody tell me what is the formula for point slope? Is it the y equals mx plus b, or is it the other one?
Y. The other one.
The other one.
Y equals y1 equals m.
Y minus y1. Yep.
Equals m parenthesis x minus x1 parenthesis.
Now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things there. How many of them are we going to fill in for?
11.
How many am I going to fill in for? 3. Let's go through. What do you do with the y? Look at your steps. Y stays as Y. Let's keep those up while we do it. So Y stays as Y. What do you do with the minus?
Keep it there.
Keep it there. Now, what do you do with the Y1?
You change it to negative.
You change it to the number after the comma. What's the number after the comma? -1. Yes, I know we have minus a minus, which turns into something. We'll do that next. What comes after the Y1? I need an equal sign. What comes after the equals? Slope. Let's read what it says to do. Plug in the slope. What's the slope they gave me? -2. Okay. What comes after the M? Before the X. Parenthesis. Next thing. X. What do we do with X? X stays as X. What comes after the X? A negative. What comes after the negative?
No.
After the negative is X1. Read the directions. So X1 says plug in the number before the comma. So yes, it changes to 3. I need one more thing. Parenthesis. And for that one, you can stop there because the directions said leave it in point slope. That is point slope. What's the one called when you get Y by itself? That's slope intercept. Y equals mx plus b yesterday, that's slope intercept. You don't have to do this one out. If you did, there'd be 2 steps. Distribute the -2 and then move that to the other side. Now, I guess there is one thing we could do here. Minus a minus turns into a what?
Positive.
Turns into a positive. Any question why y minus -1 becomes y plus 1? You should do that. Not that. Just that. I would write the final answer like that. Y plus 1 equals -2, parentheses, x minus 3.
If you left it as the y minus -1, would that be point off?
So if you left it as minus a minus, I'd probably take 1 point off because you didn't simplify.
Okay.
You wouldn't lose a lot of credit. You'd lose one point. 1 point. Okay, let's look at this one. Write an equation in what form does it say? Slope intercept. Can someone remind me, what is slope intercept? That's y equals mx plus b. Okay, so this is where you're gonna have to do part 2 now. Okay, you gotta do part 2. Okay. Now, what have they given you in that picture? They're giving you a graph. How many points have they given you? 2.
Sure.
1 here. 1 here. So it says in this type of problem, you are given 2 points. They didn't give you the slope. That's already written on your sheet. Okay. So we're going to do example 3 in this space, but you guys can fill in what's just below it, and then we'll do our last example. So in this type of problem, you're given 2 points. What do you have to have, though? You've got to know the what? You've got to know the slope. So we're going to have to find the slope first. So where it says find, and then there's a line, put find, and then what's in bold? The slope first. Find the slope first. Now, what's the formula that we can use to find the slope? Anybody remember? Yeah? Yeah? X1. Yep, perfect. So that's your formula to find the slope. Now, technically, we have a picture. We could just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? We could just count. But you might not always have the picture. They might just give you these two coordinates, just like this. And that might be all they tell you on the piece of paper. Here's the two coordinates. 1, 2, 3, negative 2. Find the equation of the line. Okay. So to find the slope, we're going to use that. Now, what's the name of the formula I taught you today? Not slope intercept. Point slope. Point slope. You need two things, a point and a slope. If you do this, you'll get the slope. Now, point. Well, I gave you 2 points. I gave you more than you needed. Pick either one of them. It doesn't matter. Okay? You've got 2 points. You can pick either one of them, and it doesn't make a difference. Pick whichever one you think is easier. Okay, pick whichever one you think is easier. And on the last line that says then, you follow the same steps. So the extra step here is you have to find the slope. That's the only extra step. Everything else is the same.
Okay, wait. So if we're only picking 1 point.
After you find the slope. Do the slope first.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I was confused.
Do the slope first, and next, pick one of the points to plug into the formula. Okay, I can't keep the directions on the screen at the same time as the graph because it's too high. Okay, Blake. Stop.
It was out of range. It was out of range.
I need to leave.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So find the slope, and then pick one of the points to plug into your formula. Does everybody have what's in bold?
Yeah.
Okay. What's that?
You stepped my last.
Does anyone have a pencil?
I have a pencil.
A pencil? Thank you.
It's not a, wait, actually?
Is that actually mine? You gave it to me because you pulled out a pencil.
All right. So let's go through and make sure we can get this one. All right. What do you have to find first? What's the first thing it says to find? The slope. Let's look at these points. I'm going to make it a little bigger to see it. We have to plug those into this formula. Okay? I want to label those points using those 4 labels. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. What's the 1? What could we call the number 1?
X2.
We could call it X2. Now, what do we have to call the Y2? I mean, what do we have to, which one of those is going to be Y2? The 2. It's got to be. Because the 2's have to go together. What about the 3?
X1.
X1, Y1. I forgot. What's the formula again? For slope?
Y2 minus Y1.
Yep.
And then X2 minus
X1.
Okay. So now let's find our slope. I'm going to do it right here. Slope. I always put the minuses, put boxes, and fill them in. Okay. What number goes in the upper left box?
Number 2.
Yep, 2. Number 2. What goes in the upper right box?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. What goes in the lower left box?
1.
1. What goes in the lower right box?
3.
3. Okay, let's simplify that and see what our slope is. What's 2 minus minus 2? 4. That becomes 2 plus 2. What's 1 minus 3? Negative 2. When you reduce that, what's 4 divided by negative 2? Negative 2. What did I just find? It's my slope, which is what letter? M. So I got some more space. I'm just going to put it right there. Got my slope. Now, besides the slope, I need a... What else do you need after you have a slope? You don't need y-intercept today. You need a point. Well, they gave us 2. Which point do you want to use?
The 1, 2.
I think the 1, 2 is the easiest one to use. Now this problem, look at what you've got. Slope and a point. Look at the first problem we did. Go back here. Slope and a point. Olivia, go over there for me. So, slope, point. You're given 2 things. You got 2 things. Slope,
Where am I
point.
going?
Anywhere over there. Slope, point. Okay, so now fill in these numbers in the row all the way by the letters. Fill in all those numbers into your formula. Okay. What's the first thing in my point slope formula? First thing I write. Think back to our formula. First thing. Yep.
Would it
Look at your steps.
be like x equals 1?
Y. So we're looking for that. This is the first thing we write. Y. Okay, so write down Y. What comes after the Y? Minus. What comes after the minus? Y1. Y1 is the number before the comma or after the comma? Right. Number after. Y minus the number after the comma. What comes next? Equals. What comes after the equals? The slope. What's the slope? Negative 2. Yep.
Where on the paper are we? Because like
This is example
3.
3.
okay, it's just mine.
You guys just have guys have space for it right there. I didn't have the same space.
Okay, I wasn't sure because it said recall, so I was like, oh.
Yeah. You guys can write it where you have room for example 3. I don't have any room there. So we got the slope. What comes right after the slope? Before the x.
Oh, wait.
We keep forgetting this.
The parentheses.
The parenthesis.
Parentheses.
Then what comes after the parenthesis?
X.
X. What comes after the x?
Plus.
Minus. And what comes after that?
1.
The y, the x value. That's the number before the
I
comma.
thought it was MX plus.
We're getting there. So this is what is this called? This isn't y equals mx plus b. This is
Pointslope.
that's point slope. So you've got your answer in point slope. Now that we have it in point slope, we have to do part 2. That's how we change it to y equals mx plus b. Right? What's the first thing you have to do to change this to y equals mx plus b?
Okay, wait, I have a quick question before that. Okay, so you picked the one where it was like 1, 2, that point?
Yes, we picked that one because it was
And
easier.
so you just fill it in with your
Yes.
slope you found?
Yep.
Okay.
And if you picked the other point, you would still be right. You
Okay.
could pick either one. You're going to get the same exact answer in a second.
Okay.
I'm not gonna do it the second way, but you would. Okay, to change this from point slope into slope intercept, what do I have to do with this -2 first? I have to distribute it. What about the left-hand side for now?
Leave it.
Leave it. What's -2 times x?
-2x.
-2x. What's -2 times -1?
2.
Positive what?
2.
2. Now, is that slope intercept?
No.
No, because slope intercept has to have what letter alone?
Why?
Y. So how do you move this -2 over to the other side?
You add.
Add, where else?
The +2.
To the +2? What's -2 plus 2? 0? What's on the left?
-2x +2.
Left.
Why?
Y. What's after the equal sign?
-2x.
-2x. What's after the -2x?
Positive 4.
Positive 4. That's what they were looking for. Okay? So first thing we had to do was find the slope. Then we filled in the slope and a point into the formula. And if they said leave your answer in slope, point slope, you guys could have stopped right there. Point slope, you're done. But the directions said slope intercept. And Lucas told us that's y equals mx plus b. So we had to do the extra step of distributing the -2 and then adding the 2. Okay? You don't always have to do the extra step. Okay? And in the last problem, last two, we're not going to do the extra step. Okay, let's look at this one. Example 4. Remember, when they write a problem like this, this is really just a coordinate. It's just a fancy way to write a coordinate. Does anybody remember how you write what I circled as a coordinate? Yep.
It's 8-4.
It's 8-4. That's it. That's all that means. How would you write this as a coordinate? 4, -2. Now look at this problem. You've got a coordinate. You've got another coordinate. It's exactly the same as the problem we just did. A coordinate and a coordinate. Except this time, I'm not going to have you write it in slope intercept. You're not going to have to do the extra step. Okay. So, what's the first thing you have to find if they give you 2 points? What am I missing that I need?
Oh, you need the slope.
I need the slope. Okay. Let's call this x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay. Don't forget your formula. y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So, let's find our slope. What's going to go in the upper left box?
8.
No. Y2. -2.
Wait.
What's going to go in the upper right box? Y1.
I did the other way.
Yeah, if you do it the other way, it's okay. You'll get the same answer. What's going to go in the lower left box?
Oh, there's 2 4 times by 4.
4 again. So there's another one.
8.
And what's going to go in the lower right?
8.
8. -2 take away 4.
6.
Careful.
2.
-6. What's 4 minus 8? Negative divide by negative? Positive. And what is 6/4 reduced to? 3/2. And what's that again? That's your
Slope.
slope. Now, to write it in point slope, you need the slope, and you need what? What do you need besides the slope? You need a coordinate. How many coordinates did they give me?
2.
Pick any one you want.
8, 4.
8, 4. 2T. Okay, so let's write our final answer. How does the formula start? Y. What comes after the Y?
Minus
Minus.
y1.
And what's our Y1? 4. What comes after that? Equals. What comes right after the equals?
The number.
What number?
8.
Slope. Right? M. Slope. What comes after the slope?
Parentheses.
Parenthesis. Good, we didn't forget this time. Parenthesis. What comes right after that?
Minus.
X, then what? Minus. What comes after the minus?
8.
The number before the comma. Okay? 8. One more thing.
-2.
And parentheses. Now, if you said, well, what if I use the other coordinate? Fine. If you use the 4, -2, you still would be correct. I would accept either answer. Okay. Any question on that?
Wait.
Okay, so the last question, we'll do example 5 as a warm-up tomorrow. Okay. Homework tonight is a worksheet on 4.2. If you want extra credit, it is in the Thursday bottom section. You can take it, and that's extra credit. It's a study guide.
What?
It is optional.
Wait, this homework is optional?
Nope.
No. Why is everybody going up there?